an older person talk about how much harder it was back in my day? Yeah, okay, boomer, that's what everyone says. There's this old character from Saturday Night Live, which is a show I like, but probably can't endorse here, so don't watch it. But there's this character called Grumpy Old Man, and this is an excerpt from, this is back in the 90s whenever I was growing up. It's played by Dana Carvey, so tell me if this sounds familiar. He said, today everyone's spoiled rotten. When I was a boy, we didn't have these video games. We made up our own games, like chew the bark off the tree. You and your friends would find a nice oak tree and you'd start chewing the skin right off of it. And there were no winners. Everyone was a loser. They rotted your teeth, left your intestines all scarred and knotted, and that's the way it was, and we liked it. We loved it. It was like that. Kids today have it so easy. We've heard stuff like that before, right? Just by, I don't know, just shout out which one you think. Do teenagers today have it easier or harder than people back then? Oh, so we're undecided. We don't know. That's what I got from that. We don't know. Everyone said harder unanimously. Anyway, there's this article I was reading to help me sort of explore which side of the fence I fall on with that very same question. The name of the article is Reasons Being a Teenager is Harder Than It Was in Our Day. It's written by this content creator named BJ Foster. He's worked with adolescents for over 15 years, and he has 3 points that might be validating to some of us. Number 1, he said that teenagers today, you guys, this generation, are under the microscope and forever documented. I don't know about you, but that stresses me out just thinking about it. To be under a microscope? I mean, think of how exposed you'd feel all the time. And forever documented? Every stupid, dumb thing you've ever said living online in like these archives forever and perhaps even circulated around the whole school, the planet? Oh man, that's heavy. People didn't have to deal with that in the past. These stories, these embarrassing things that you've said or done, those pictures that you took, they didn't live online forever. You could just burn them, right? And all the rumors, they would just fade away like rumors or folklore at best. Number 2, he said, there is never-ending exposure. We're just being exposed to things all the time. There used to be think about bullying. If you were in school back in the day, there used to be a break from bullying. It's called going home. And not anymore, right? Cyberbullying, it's still like you get home from the physical bullying, you get home and it's cyberbullying nonstop, and it can sometimes even be worse in many ways. There's a constant exposure to violence, sexualized images, pornography. It all happens before our minds are even able to process it in healthy ways because we haven't grown or developed cognitively yet to the point where we can handle it, right? And this is what's happening, and it's constant, it's incessant, it never stops. Foster writes in his article, innocence and childhood are cut short while adulthood is still many years away. And that's just a tough, hard spot to be in, right? Where it's like, you have to grow up faster than you physically can, but you're not grown up yet. What a pickle we find ourselves in. Which brings me to the 3rd point. There are these unhealthy expectations on us. He says teens are increasingly asked to do too much with not enough time to complete the tasks they're asked to do. He writes this, when I asked one teen to go to a summer camp several years ago, he asked if he would get service hours for going to the summer camp. When I told him no, he asked why he should go. When I said, to have fun? He said, I don't have time for that. And then he says, what a sad statement. So with those 3 points I just listed, and the list can go on about how much harder it might be for your generation today, and all the stress, the weight, the pressure that is on you without any kind of reprieve. How do y'all feel? Do you feel anxious now, just hearing all of that? If so, good, that was my goal. I wanted to get you to feel a little bit of that. Feel a little bit of anxiety. But not like the, oof, that crooked picture on the wall is giving me mad anxiety right now. Or like, ugh, this bowl of spaghetti and how the noodles are just like there's no sequence to it whatsoever. I just have anxiety, I can't even look at it right now. I'm not talking about anxiety like that. We tend to toss this word around a lot and take it a little bit out of context. That's not the kind of anxiety we're talking about. I'm talking about the real stuff because it is real. I'm talking about the stuff that, tell me if you felt like this before. There's like this pressure in your chest and it's so heavy that it's hard to breathe physically. There's a physical response to this feeling of anxiety. Or maybe you can't even sleep at night because your mind is racing. It's like you're on a treadmill that just won't stop and you can't run anymore, but you have to because the treadmill won't stop, and that's all you can think about are just thoughts, and you're like, I'm thinking about thoughts, and you can't stop. It's in the middle of the night. Maybe you don't sleep at all. Maybe there are knots in your stomach and you can't focus on anything else. This is real. Maybe you can never seem to relax because you're always on edge. What we're not going to say tonight is take some anti-anxiety medication and it'll go away and you'll be fine. Right? What we're not going to say tonight is, go see a counselor. I don't want to worry about it. Don't want to think about it. Out of sight, out of mind. Suppress it, ignore it. It'll go away. We're not going to say that tonight. I'm also not going to say just pray more, read more of your Bible, and if God really loves you, He will heal you. I'm not going to say that either. I do want to look at the difference between stress and anxiety, though, because there's a distinction to be made. Also want to help us see some warning signs whenever it comes to anxiety, so hopefully we can punch anxiety in the face, because that's really what we want to do. We want to defeat this thing, right? So here are a couple things. Number one, stress is specific. So a lot of us will use stress and anxiety interchangeably, but they're not actually the same thing. Stress is specific. So if you're stressed out, it's probably over something like a test, or a project, or an event, or a performance, or going to see your family for Thanksgiving. Yeesh! When it passes, when that event or the circumstance that you're stressing out about passes, usually so does the stress. It goes away because it's over and it happened and you got through it and survived, right? Anxiety is not specific. Anxiety you feel all the time, or about everything, and it doesn't go away when the circumstance or the event or whatever happens. It's irrational and it doesn't make any sense. If you say you're anxious and you're experiencing anxiety or anxiety attack or something, and someone asks you why, what's the reason? You can't give them an answer. It feels like everything all at once. There's not one specific thing. So that's usually a good way to tell the difference if you're feeling stress or anxiety. Can you pinpoint specifically what's the root of it? With anxiety, warning signs are really hard to spot. It's not like a gas. Have you ever been in the car with a parent or something and your car's like about to run out of gas? Like, whenever I was a kid, I'd be like sleeping in the back of our Astro van, because, vans for life. And, it was so cool. I don't even know. Van. Am I right, Lori? Yeah! Anyway, I would know that we were about to run out of gas. Two things. One, a little light comes on the dash, right? And then you hear probably this annoying beeping. It's like ding, ding, ding. And it's either my door is open, because I just want to get away from my family that bad, or we're about to run out of gas. But like I said, I was asleep in the back, so I didn't really realize that either of those things were happening. What woke me up was my dad's driving, and he just yanks the car like left to right. And I hit my head on the glass. Like bam! Like waking up, and I think it was his way of sloshing the remaining gas in the tank around enough to get to the fuel pump and to the engine to hopefully get us to the gas station a couple more feet or a mile or two. He figured that if you just swerve all over the road vigorously, it'll create like a little wave in the gas tank and hoist the gas into the fuel pump or something. I'm like, there's none in the tank, Dad! Anyway, we broke down all the time. Anyway, anxiety's not like that. When you're about to run out of gas, when you're at your wit's end, and this is about to happen, there aren't those simple warning signs like that. And we find ourselves stranded, alone on the side of this busy highway, and everything's going by us quickly, and we're here helpless, and no one seems to notice or care, and it's a crappy place to be, and I don't want to see anybody I know or love get to that point. I definitely don't want to be at that point, so what can we do? Before we get into it, I want to say it's weird how stress and anxiety, actually, they both can be good things. I think whenever we were created, God sort of like knit this into us as like a self-preservation thing to help us and other people around us really know whenever something's wrong or something's about to be wrong, we start to feel these feelings, and we could either help ourselves or ask for help. But we're so afraid to ask for help now. And it can be really dangerous, and that's whenever you see bad things happen, whenever we isolate ourselves. And so I guess it can go from being a helpful thing to a harmful thing whenever anxiety and stress overstay their welcome. It's kind of like a house guest, or like if you're dog sitting for somebody, and you're like, the dog is cute, but then it's been like 9 days, and I hate this thing now, and I just wish it would just go drink some antifreeze or something. Here. What? Never will. I'm sorry, it's just hypothetical. I've never even done that. Jeez, call PETA. So the Bible, right? I love the Bible. Do you? Yes. Okay, good. That's the right answer, because this is church. I love the Bible and how timeless it is. I also love, there's this biblical author named David. Y'all heard of him? David, I'll tell you about him really quick. He was a very poetic dude, much like myself, you know. Very poetic, very musical. People loved him. Great. He was oh, you want to see this? I was going to say it's muted, so I can't, but it's not. I'm a failure. I can't play it anyway. I'm no Emma. Isn't Emma amazing? Come on! But, he was also really musical. He was one of the greatest kings of Israel. And so he had all these accomplishments. He's a biblical author, but man, this guy screwed up majorly. I mean, enormously. But God still loved him. And I think that gives a sinner like me some hope. Because you have this guy, he's got some things going for him. And then he can basically just throw it all down the toilet. But God redeemed him, and God loves him in spite of all of that. And I think if you're like me, I don't know, like, that can give you a lot of hope. So in Psalm 56, he writes this. And he's experiencing a lot of stress, which I think probably even has evolved into anxiety at this point. And so this is where we pick up. Psalm 56, verses 1 through 2. He's crying out to God, and he says, "Be merciful to me, my God, for my enemies are in hot pursuit." He's got these guys trying to kill him. They're chasing after him, right? He says, "All the day long they press their attack. My adversaries pursue me all day long." It doesn't stop. It doesn't quit. It doesn't give up. It just continues and continues and continues. There's this pressure. There's this weight that's coming at me from all sides. He's buckling under the weight and the pressure of that. He knew anxiety. He was experiencing it. He was living it for real. And it was so bad, he could literally die as a result of it. Maybe you felt like that. You're like, man, it would almost be better to not live than it would be to live in this moment. Or you've had a friend who said something like that, or you've seen something like that online. It's crazy. It sounds like that article I read those 3 points from earlier. Never-ending exposure. Never-ending. All day long. Under the microscope, forever documented. My adversaries pursue me all day long. They press their attack. It's crazy, the similarities there. This was thousands of years ago, and here we are experiencing it today. But notice what he does. There's 2 steps that we can apply whenever we feel or experience anxiety, or we have loved ones who are or do. Step number one is name it. Give it a name. This is what calls something out of the darkness and into the light, when you expose it by calling it out. If it's a stressful person, a circumstance, or a relationship, call it out. Call it out to God. Whenever it's anxiety, I know I just said, like, we can't pinpoint it, we don't know what it specifically is. Look, it might just be anxiety. You might just need to say, I have anxiety, I struggle with anxiety, this anxiety is something that grips me and plagues me, and you just need to call it for what it is and own it, and I just give it an identity. That's got to be step number one. David did this. For him, it was his enemies, right? Called it out. It starts to drain the power out of what grips you. He goes on to say this in verses 3 and 4. When I am afraid, I will put my trust in you. When I'm afraid, I put my trust in you. He says, in God, whose word I praise, in God I trust, and I am not afraid. It sounds so good to not be afraid, doesn't it? He says, what can mere mortals do to me? That's like the definition of not being afraid, right? Whenever you're not worried about what anyone can do to you or say to you, your words or actions, they can't touch me, they can't hurt me. And we've seen it elsewhere in Scripture, like, dude, at your very worst, I'm gonna die. Like, death is gain. I get to go be with Jesus. Like, that's the absence of fear. And listen, school is a reality, like, for you guys right now. Parents arguing is probably a reality, right? Friends turning on us is probably a reality. Like, people being rude and mean and saying things to you that tear you down, it's a reality. But my encouragement would be not to give these distractions more power than they deserve. Don't let them get you off track. Step number 2 is redirect your focus. Step number 2 is redirect your focus. This is what David did. He says, when I'm afraid, what does he do? I put my trust in you. If you'll notice, David's circumstance doesn't change. And for a lot of us, whenever we're in the face of anxiety or stress or whatever these situations, these circumstances that are so debilitating, man, maybe they're not going to change. Like, you're going to be in school for a while. You're going to be in that house that you live in for a while. Like, you might be around those people that you go to school with and that are rude to you for a while. Like, that might not change. But your focus sure can. You can focus on those things and you can entertain them, give them the power over you, or you can shift your focus. And David chose to put his trust, his focus on God. And I think that really that's a major part of the solution. A lot of us, we don't make it, we don't make it to this part. We get stuck. We feel defeated because the situation won't improve and we kind of like give up. And it's hard. And I know that it's a scary place to be. And I think a lot of us try to take on anxiety alone. We have a sense of shame about it. We don't want people to know. We don't want to show this weakness. We're afraid of what people might say or think even more. We don't want to make things worse. So we hide. We might need some help shifting our focus. And here's the problem with that. Like, doing that on your own, it might be next to impossible. It might be. But someone might be able to help you and speak truth over you and encourage you and tell you those things that you need to hear that you can't tell yourself. I think David was able to do it himself, and he was able to do it quickly because he had something. And it's in the passage we just read. See, look, he knew God's word. We'll put it up. I'll put it in red. He says, when I'm afraid, I put my trust in you, in God, this is the key word, the biggest word in the whole thing is the word, whose word I praise. David knew God's word. He knew truths about God. He could come back to the things that were true about God, what he says about David, what he says about himself, what he says about his future and his plans. And he could remind himself of those things. For some of us, we don't know those things. We don't know God's word well enough. And so it's like, what hope do we have to get out of this pit that we're in? Maybe you need someone who does know until you can know and have those tools to help yourself get out the next time you're in that pit. But we need each other. We need each other. Here's the truth. It's hard to trust God if you don't know him. It's hard to trust anybody if you don't know him, right? It really helps to know somebody. We don't trust very easily, do we? We've been burned a lot, haven't we? If you want to trust God, and this is the biggest part of the solution, I promise you, if you want to do that, you've got to know His Word. And David was a man after God's own heart, wasn't he? He knew him some God's Word. So do you? If you struggle with stress and anxiety and it's just like pounding down on you all the time, how much of God's Word do you really know? How much time are you spending in it? How many truths about Him, His character, His design, His love for you can you remind yourself of? If you were to hear God's messages, His truth about you more frequently than the negative ones coming in to you, about you from this world, from social media, from whatever, man, it would change your life. It would change your life. And you can't do that if you don't know it. So take it from me. Your situation, it might never change. It might not get better for a long time. But the power those situations hold in you, they can change. I think today we're so quick to prescribe medication or whatever to handle stress or anxiety, and I don't know, like I have a stance or whatever on that, but I do believe that God is absolutely powerful, and that He can solve, He can heal, and He can do miraculous things. He can change the heart, He can change the mind, He can do it all, absolutely. I also believe that He sometimes works through some dang medicine too, so there's no shame in that, or seeing a counselor as well, if this is you or somebody you know. My dad told me this story one time. It was about this hiker who was going along the trail all by himself, like an idiot. Don't go hiking alone, okay? There's that movie, 144 Hours or something. Don't watch it. Anyway, I've told you a lot of things not to watch them. But this guy slips off the trail, he falls down a huge, crazy cliff, but he grabs a root at the last second. He's dangling off 1,000-foot, sheer face drop, holding on to nothing but this root. And what does he do? No! He prays to God, of course. He's a man of faith. So he prays to God, and he asks God to save him. It's like, God, save me. He's crying out. After a couple of minutes go by, another hiker comes by, and he's like, oh my gosh! Bro, I can throw you a rope and lift you up. He's like, no! I'm waiting for God to save me! Guy's like, all right, best of luck. A little while later, a guy's walking out, he has a 1,000-foot ladder. He's like, bro! I can hoist up this 1,000-foot ladder and you can just crawl down to safety. He's like, no! I'm waiting for God to save me! Guy's like, all right. Minutes later, a helicopter flies by. This helicopter is like, and the guy's like, sir, reach out and grab onto the helicopter. We can save you. He's like, no! I'm waiting for God to save me. Take your junky helicopter. It's been so long, his arm gets weak. He can't hold on any longer. He falls and dies. He goes to heaven and he sees God. And he's like, God, I prayed to you time and time again. I had this insane faith. I mean, literally insane faith that you would save me and that you would rescue me. Why didn't you do anything? God looks at me and he's like, you idiot, I sent you a guy, a ladder, and a helicopter. What more did you need? Sometimes God's way of helping is right in front of us. Sometimes it's miraculous too. And so with that, if you deal with debilitating anxiety, or you know someone who does, I don't know if meds or whatever is 10% or 90% of the solution, or none of the solution, but I do know that God is part of the solution. Fact. Every time. It can't be done without Him. It can't be overcome without Him. Darkness can't be overcome without the light. It can be like, I don't know, undimmed a little bit, I guess, but if you want like a straight up rescue, there's only one rescuer, and His name is Jesus. His name is Jesus. In some cases, I've known God to be 100% the solution. And that's beautiful. It's no less beautiful whenever it's God and something else. Because He designed that. He designed the minds to create amazing things that can be helpful to us. So use them. But pray about it first. And consult a professional. The bottom line for tonight is there are tools to take on anxiety. There are. And if you've ever felt helpless and alone, you are not helpless and you are not alone. How you're feeling is absolutely okay. It's just not okay to stay there or to go backwards. May you walk forward into the light, into the marvelous light of God. And there is hope. Jesus sees you, he loves you, and he doesn't just love you, he likes you. He wants to be around you. He likes you so much, he gave his life for you so that you don't have to suffer like he did. So that you don't have to live in pain and in torment. So these things don't have to plague your mind. There's freedom from all of it, and it's only found in Jesus.